Jake, good to see you, man. It's been a little bit. Actually, we've only met in person one time,
That's true.
which is
That's true.
interesting, right? We worked together for a bit and interfaced all the time, but it's one of those phenomenons of living in 2023, right? The world's a Twilight Zone episode, and you work with people that you feel like you become good friends with, and maybe sometimes never even seen them. I've never even met Jen Steele, who was our
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forget
yeah.
that you guys didn't overlap, but yeah, we got to make that at least twice that we've hung out in person at some point.
Yeah, which is crazy because I would, she was my boss for the duration of time there, and yet we never met in person. But
Yeah, that's so
anyways,
funny.
it is crazy. Well, just real quick, why don't you tell folks a little bit about your career background? How'd you get into customer marketing? Because I think your experience is pretty unique. You've worked for the top right marketing tech company in the world, arguably, right, in HubSpot, and have held a couple of different roles.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a kind of an interesting path to not just customer marketing, but marketing in general. I started out, as I think maybe many people do, in tech sales. As my first role, I started out just being a BDR at a enterprise cloud computing organization called VM Turbo. It's now called Turbonomic. I was there for about a year and a half, made the switch to HubSpot, where I continued on in sales. Frankly, I found out that I wasn't all that good at sales during my time there, but it really gave me an appreciation for marketing and really inbound marketing as a strategy. And on top of that, one of the products that I sold there was they launched the sales solutions, which are known as Sales Hub now, but they were sort of an offshoot product when I started. And that was a true freemium model, very product led. And I gained a real appreciation for that type of growth model as well. And so after I left HubSpot, I knew that I wanted to be in marketing and knew that somebody would just have to take a chance on me in that regard. I've always been like a strong writer and content creator. So really it was just about getting that chance. And I joined a company called Penn Foster, which is an ed tech company. They're an online school, and I spent about 4-ish years there. That role was sort of, it was how I found my way into customer marketing, but that happened pretty organically. We worked with a lot of great clients, and I would really work on our clients' behalf to help generate demand for Penn Foster programs to their employees and associates. And so that role was sort of like more like an agency type deal where I was really working on behalf of our clients to help launch campaigns, create landing pages, set up registration flows, and things like that. But really just have always loved interfacing with customers and having a relationship, building a relationship with them. And that really allowed me to do that. From there, I joined you at Reprise. And that was the second time that I built a customer marketing program from scratch. It was very different because Penn Foster is like a 700 employee company. Reprise was a Series A when I joined. And so there was a ton of freedom, but there was also, it was in that freedom was just really a blank slate, and having to build up that type of program from the ground up is not the easiest thing to do. But thankfully we had some really great customers to work with, and I really fell in love with customer marketing at a startup during my time there. Recently was at a company called Piano, just left, and am now looking for my next opportunity. But again, the startup space is really where I thrive, and it's what I love. Working really, really closely with customers to build strong advocates, help them get educated on the product, community, all of those awesome things we'll get into as we talk. That's absolutely my passion. So, and thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to
Absolutely.
speak with you. Yeah.
For sure. Well, I remember when you joined, because I was sort of like wearing a bunch of different hats. I think I was the first marketer. So I launched that marketing effort at Reprise, or working with Joe. Joe had come to me one day, and I was carrying a bag because actually I've known Joe for many, many years. He was at Inside Squared and used to do a bunch of like community events, and Inside Squared was actually my first sponsor, if I'm remembering correctly, for a organization, this community that I used to run called Sales for Startups. anyways, so I knew Joe from that experience, and of course he has just been pretty active in the ecosystem. And when I had first joined, he was like, "Hey, it was really early, and there were no one, right? It was just the founders and I think a couple engineers, and so I was carrying a bag, when I eventually joined, and he was one day sitting there going, you know what, that community stuff that you kind of just the events and evangelism stuff that you've been doing the last couple of years, essentially for like fun, or I don't
Yeah.
know, I just kind of keeping myself relevant or something. Could you do that now for the brand and launch, our marketing effort? And I was like, dude, I've never held a marketing title, right? I'd always been on the sales side
Mhm.
outside of like, as a founder, you give yourself whatever title you want. So I've done that plenty of times. So I was like, absolutely. You're going to pay me to do that? F yeah. Right. So
Yeah,
that
for
was,
sure.
and I remember then you joined and you just took the customer marketing stuff that I had hacked together just to a level of polish um, and exceptionalism that was awesome. So I remember just being like, oh my god, he really knows what he's doing here.
The secret half the time is that you don't really know what you're doing at a company like that. You figure it out along the way. But no, I appreciate you saying that. It was really fun working with you on that stuff, and especially the community angles to everything. Really just love building advocates. You've got such a great network of people too that working with you was always a pleasure, because we would always be able to connect our customers with really cool opportunities, events, and the like. So yeah, I was really proud of what we built together there. So yeah, it's great to hear.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what customer marketing is, because I think for some folks out there, they're trying to figure it out, and I think that there's a certain size of organization that really needs to start to invest in customer marketing, or they're really going to hit their limit, I think, pretty quickly, or be missing out on a lot. So how would you define it?
Yeah, it's a good question. And to your point, I think customer marketing is something that I believe that every organization, no matter the size, should invest in at some level. The way I view customer marketing is it's marketing to your customers to increase retention, loyalty, generate brand advocates, but also through your customers to generate demand for new business by leveraging social proof and the advocates themselves, customer-led content. And the reason I say that I think it's important for organizations of all sizes to use it is because if you have a customer, then you should be doing customer marketing, right? There's always opportunities to market to those customers to keep them around and increase retention, increase loyalty. And I think that the three main pillars of customer marketing that I really try to focus on. I use the helpful acronym ACE, ACE. A is for advocacy. So that's anything from case studies, testimonials to customer reviews, proof points of any kind that advocates themselves can be at the center of. Number two is community. And this is something that I think is really built for larger organizations when you have a really robust customer base that is really engaged and just needs a place to connect with one another in order to knowledge share and just build relationships with other like-minded customers. But number three, education is something that really everybody should be doing. Customers crave knowledge about the products that they're using. And so whether it's an ongoing newsletter series where you highlight new product features or helpful documentation, or whether it's just emailing your customers on a periodic basis with helpful tips and tricks and anything else, education is something that I think everybody should be doing at some level. Maybe you have a webinar series that you run once a month that helps customers learn a little bit more about a specific product feature, or a way to work better with your support team, or whatever the case is. If a customer is paying you money, you want to be helping them get the absolute most out of your solution. And that's really where the education part comes in. And so, again, customer marketing is a lot of things, but at the very most basic level, it's sending your customers the information that they need to help them increase usage and stickiness with your product and your company.
Awesome. If you were to think about what a customer marketer should focus on, let's say, their first 90 days? And I understand that this actually varies, because if you're in a situation where it doesn't exist, it might look different than, if there's something there and you're coming in and taking over, or optimizing it. But if you had to kind of summarize those first 90 days, what they might consist of, what comes to mind?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it may be self-explanatory and obvious, but you want to assess the foundation of what's there, whether that is nothing, in which case, I think there's still insights you can pull. How happy are your customers? What do they say about you? Do they say anything about you on their own, right? And if it's nothing, great. You have tons of field to work with. Coming in at Reprise, you had already made some case studies. They were kind of sitting out there in the ether, and me assessing the foundation there was taking stock of what we have from a resource standpoint, but also from a customer standpoint, and figuring out how to put those assets to work for our go-to-market org. And if you're coming into a company that has a more built-out program already, you obviously want to assess everything that's gone right, gone wrong, and go from there. But building relationships is something that I think is really important, and regardless of how mature the customer marketing program is, you need to do this job well, have strong relationships, not only with your customers, but with your customer facing reps internally. There's a lot of trust that goes into the relationship between CSMs and a customer marketer. Like I said, I think the relationship between customer marketer and customer is critical to success in this role. But in order to get in front of the customers, you really need CSMs that trust you know what you're doing, first of all, and can speak to customers in a way that's both intelligent, represent your brand well, and keep them around. And so I think whether it's you have really happy customers who are eager to speak to you, getting in front of them and building relationships with them so you can just start adding value early, or whether it's just maybe we don't have a lot of customers yet and we're just figuring out where to start, getting in with those CSMs and making sure that the work that you're doing is directly benefiting them is super important as well. I also really like coming in and just once that stuff, it's assessing the foundation has been done, tackling the lowest hanging fruit first. And this is, one of the ways that I think you can build early trust with a CS org, as well as customers is, for me at Reprise, it was, you have, maybe like 3 or 4 case studies built out. You've got a light foundation here, but how, what do we need to take those assets and really make them work for the business, and how can we get there in as little time as possible and really decreasing that time to value. 30, 60, 90 days, like the 90-day thing, I think after 90 days, you should probably have a framework or a strategy that you can present internally to say, hey, I know we've come this far so far. Here's what we had when I walked in. Here's how I'm going to take this and move forward. And here's the strategy going forward for whether it's how do we, identify and generate new case studies, or whether it's what types of education plays are we running? Are we running a monthly webinar series? Are we running a monthly customer newsletter? What opportunities for communications exist in between and outside of those? What events are we going to be at? That kind of thing. And how are we going to measure success is super important there. And so again, like I think early on, just take stock of what you have. Quick wins are great. Build as many relationships as you can. And then that'll give you a strong foundation to understand how we're measuring success, where maybe the bottlenecks are, where the deficiencies are, and make sure that a strategy really, attacks all of those and everything in between.
As you describe, these various sort of approaches and situations, I can't help but just think to myself, boy, customer marketing has to be able to develop great relationships internally with a variety of different stakeholders within the organization. It sounds very similar to like the dynamic that product marketers seem to have, right? Where, the product marketer needs to interface really well with leadership, in the C-suite, and has to interface really well with product, right? But also their internal within the team, internal stakeholders within marketing, and then of course sales and sales enablement, right? So like that kind of sort of conduit or mediator within those various organizations or teams or stakeholders, it feels like customer marketing has a very similar sort of dynamic in that, if the alignment is not really well with CS, boy, that could be quite challenging. Speaking of challenges, what are some of the typical challenges that you as a customer marketer have seen, and what are some ways to overcome it? Maybe some tips you can give folks to maybe be able to be on the lookout for something.
Yeah, no, I think you teed it up really nicely, because I think collaboration is really something that I've seen companies fail at a lot. Customer marketing is closely tied in with the CS team, but it's also really closely tied in with product and with sales, or it should be anyway. And organizations that don't have a strong feedback loop or communication with across teams anyway, really end up struggling when it comes to this, because customer marketing is doing a lot of great work. I know so many customer marketers that are doing like groundbreaking work, but if those assets aren't being used by sales, if sales doesn't know the value of the assets and where to find them and how and when to use them, that could be a killer, right? What good is a case study if it's not getting used at the right time in the sales process? I find similar with a relationship with the product team. Obviously product marketers are working heavily with the product team, but customer marketing should be too. If there's new product features that customers are, have either been clamoring for, and customer marketing knows that based on customer feedback, or whether there's just a really cool new feature that we think customers can get a lot of value of. I cannot tell you how many times I've been in an organization where a main piece of feedback from customers is, we didn't know this feature even existed, right? Like, they've been asking for a feature. It turns out it's in the platform already, and they just never heard about it. That's a communication breakdown. It's as much on customer marketing as it is on like the collaboration between that function and the rest of the organization. Product marketing oftentimes is focused on driving net new business, right? They don't have a lot of time to focus on marketing to customers. And so I think that those feedback loops and those lines of communication are so critically important to success. And I think that it can be a major challenge, because a lot of organizations don't really still yet have a sense of where customer marketing fits in that process. And so it's up to the customer marketer to come in and say, here's where I fit, here's how we can communicate best together, and here are the outcomes we can expect to achieve if we do that in the right way. I think another major challenge, and this is sort of like a organizational top-down sort of thing, but a lot of organizations say they're customer centric, but what does that really mean a lot of the time, right? You can tell as a customer marketer whether or not a company really centers its customers in its overall go-to-market strategy. I think we're seeing more than ever right now that companies who fail to retain their customers are really failing to exist anymore. Keeping your customers at the center of your go-to-market strategy, maximizing the revenue you can retain from your customer base, is no longer really just like a nice to have, right? We can't rely on generating net new logos to survive anymore. We have to expand our customer base, at the very least, not lose the contract. And I think that it really all comes down to how much of a strategy that is, like at like the senior leadership and like board level. I think it really comes down to that. And so, I caution customer marketers to, if they're at an organization that they think maybe isn't as customer centric, to really think about what that means, for their own role. And if you're interviewing for roles, as I am right now, asking questions around, what their view is on customer centricity and what kinds of strategies are they employing to maximize the value of their customer base. And I think those are really the two things that I've seen in my my time in customer marketing, but really in companies in general. I've worked at companies that really love their customers, and companies that really, you couldn't tell if they did or not, right? And so I think those two things really stand out to me.
If you were to think about the perfect, I hate to use the word perfect, but maybe a fantastic customer story sort of strategy where you're really trying to kind of derive, proof points and those sort of things. What are some of the steps to be able to acquire something like that or develop something like that? And what does it actually look like?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I mean, so customer marketers will tell you, I think we have a unique perspective on case studies in that people ask for them all the time. They really, really want a different case study on every single individual use case that a product has, and every single customer segment. Anytime they're in a sales process, they want to give somebody a case study to read that is exactly their persona, exactly their use case, and that can be difficult. Case studies are a lot of work in the traditional sense, in the way that we've seen them for maybe the past 10 years or so in SaaS, where it's either a downloadable PDF, always very long form, challenge, solution, results type model. And I think those work for some use cases, but we have to start thinking about case studies as a larger sort of umbrella term for what we really mean. What we really mean is customer proof, right? Let's just say that. People want quick bite-sized pieces of information that they can consume and go, yes, I see myself in that story, without having to peruse 1,000 words, 1,500 words to actually get to the point of the story. And so whether that's quick testimonials, whether it's just way more bite-sized formats for case studies, think 300 to 400 words max. Videos are a great resource.
I love video.
I know you do. But yeah, I mean, on-site videos are also kind of a time suck. And so you really got to be sure that the companies that you're using the resources to do an on-site video for are your absolute top tier stories, ones you want to get people on camera to share. But that being said, there's a lot of great tools out there that help people do video testimonials, but in a much easier way for customers, and less of a resource intensive way for the companies themselves. There are also great tools out there, like I'm going to name drop, like User Evidence. Our friend Evan Huck,
shout out to Evan.
Yeah, shout out Evan. That tool is great to generate a high volume of case studies at scale. If that's what you need from a lot of different personas, really great bite-sized, pre-designed templates that you can use. But that's, I think, my overall ethos about case studies is, when we say case studies, what do we really mean? It's customer proof. And there's a lot of different ways that we can accomplish that, right? Like I said, sometimes the long form, the video, the really intensive stuff is necessary. If you're your best customers, your most incredible stories, and I think there's absolutely still a place for those. We actually have to get comfortable, way more comfortable, just getting stories out there, whatever that means, and not spending too much time, spinning your tires on one long form case study.
Jake, my brother, thank you so much for being on the show. Very much appreciated. If folks wanted to maybe connect with you on social media, ping you for some advice, or maybe there's some folks out there who are like, you know what, we want to work with Jake, what are the best channels to reach you?
Yeah, I'm always on LinkedIn. I've always got it up, so feel free to shoot me a connection, or just shoot me a message. My email is jake.sotir@gmail.com. Feel free to connect with me there. I would love to connect with any and all of you. Like I said, I'm open to work right now, so if you need somebody for some contract work, or if you're looking to hire somebody full-time, would love the consideration. But yeah, I would absolutely just love to connect with any and all, whatever makes sense.
Awesome. Well, Jake, great to see you, my brother, and hope to see you in person soon again.
Yeah, let's make it happen, man. Get me down to Miami.
Let's do it. Although
right.
It's been raining, so it's the summertime here. But best time to come, I think, is probably in the fall.
All right,
where it's not too hot, not too rainy.
I would love that.
Awesome. All right, brother. Well, have a great day. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, man.